Yeah, I think again when you make these transitions in this profession, um, you're kind of governed by the phase that you're in, right? You're governed by, okay, I made the change in December. We got to start recruiting. You go from recruiting to your winter conditioning. You go right from winter conditioning into your spring ball, right from spring ball into your summer program. So we got in the phase of this thing right in the middle of recruiting, so it was hot and heavy, which we appreciate everyone's help, and we did a really good job. But family and I are great. My wife has family in Mississippi. We've been in Mississippi before, so it was kind of some familiarity coming back. So yes, it's went quick, but it was really good transition overall.
And you've brought, and I don't know what the official number is, but I'll just say double digit players from Marshall to Southern Miss. Has that made the transition easier? Because you know the guys, but also those are everybody has their own travel journey and their own process. So it's like you got to go through all that with them too. I mean, I'm sure they have friends and family and logistics of that. How was that for you?
Yeah, so we're up to about 28 guys that have
Yeah.
transferred.
Yep.
Obviously, it made it easier for everybody. Easier for everybody because, like you said, there's logistics that go into that, right? There's, where's my apartment? How am I getting my stuff there? Where do I live? Who's this guy next to me in the locker room? Because it was so many familiar faces, it was a lot easier for the guys to transition, right? We brought so many of our staff members down, so they already knew who to go to in the training room. They knew who to go to in the player development, area of the program. They knew who to go to in the weight room. It was so much consistency because of the amount of people that came down. It really helped the players transition a lot smoother, and I think that's been a big piece of why we've been able to take the leaps and bounds we have this summer and growing as a team because we were able to eliminate some of the you call it icebreakers, moments that you have to have. What's your name? Where are you from? My name's John. You eliminate some of that because you have such a core that already knows each other and knows how you do things. They're able to be leaders in the locker room. They're able to be examples in the locker room. One thing that goes unnoticed a lot of times is the back door conversations, right? When they get back to the dorm or the apartment, hey, what did coach mean by this? Hey, tomorrow, what is this? What does this practice look like tomorrow? Hey, what is this drill going to be tomorrow? Players being able to do that, it leaves so much anxiety for the new guys or the other guys who didn't, play at the other place, and made it a lot easier for them to transition as well.
Yeah, and then you bring in Blake Anderson as your new OC. We're familiar with him in the Sun Belt, a former head coach at Arkansas State. What was the decision behind that? And is it just having someone familiar with the conference, just to lay out the landscape of it all? Obviously, you are because you're at Marshall for multiple years. But what was that decision process like, bringing someone with Sun Belt experience onto the
Yeah, I
staff?
think that was my goal. I wanted obviously regionality awareness. This is a special part of the country. There's a lot of talent in this country. This is a really big relationship part of the country. So I wanted some regional awareness to understand what type of players we're going to be recruiting, what type of players we needed to recruit. I wanted someone that had experience, at the OC position. I kind of got lucky because Blake has had both, right, OC and head coach experience, which, especially in year one, allows me to be a lot more relational with the players because I don't have to sit in every meeting offensively and say, hey, we should be running this play or not that play. I can trust that Blake is managing the offensive staff from a head coach's position. I can trust that when I deliver the message that he's going to be able to run with that message in the offensive room. And then I know he knows this league, right? So he knows what it takes. He knows the grind week in and week out of a very competitive league. He knows what it's like to go to a lot of these stadiums, really all of them that we're going to go to, because, again, he's been there, done that, right? So he knows all of the um, conference awareness things that needs to know, right? What typical type of players at certain places? What is the vibe? What is the fan base at certain places? And then finally, he has familiarity with Southern Miss. The last time he was here as the offensive coordinator with Coach Fedora, they were really, really good on offense. So he knows, how good this place can be when it's rocking. He knows, how impactful this university and this football program are together. So Really excited to get him. He's been doing a phenomenal job. Can't wait to let him run his offense this season.
All right, on the field. Finally, I know a lot of off-field stuff, but let's narrow it down onto the field. You got Braylon Braxton back. I mean, or you brought him from Marshall once again to Southern Miss preseason offensive player of the year. We saw what he did last year on the field. Just what about his development, continued growth at the QB position, and how is that helping you with this transition on the field with the players?
I think obviously his leadership, right? He's got to re-identify himself with the rest of the team now. Yes, it helps that he has 26 or 27, familiar brothers, but he's got to re-identify. He's got to reestablish that leadership with the new players, the rest of the team. I think again on field, obviously we saw what he did last year. Phenomenal performance. Taking care of the ball. Obviously the mobility and the arm strength to do it all. I think the next step for him is just consistency in his growth. Right, there's a lot of things. Year 2 in the system, it's a slightly different system than we were running at Marshall, but similar. Year 2 in the system, typically in year 2, quarterbacks take that next step. Typically in year 2 as a starter, quarterbacks take that next step. So obviously looking for that to happen, and also understanding that the expectations that come with being all that people say he is has nothing to do with how you have to perform. You're never going to meet those expectations. We could talk about Tom Brady and people will talk about the Super Bowls he didn't win. But understanding that your expectation of how you develop every single day, how you show up every single day with the right discipline and focus is going to ultimately write the story. And I think he's done a really good job of managing that. There's a lot of pressure that comes with all the accolades he's getting. But in our building, it hasn't changed him. He's still got the same work ethic, the same determination, the same influence on his teammates.
And defensively, you brought Chris Jones with you to the media day. Why him? And then just in general, how's that defensive unit been? We talked so much about offense with Coach Anderson and obviously with Braylon. What about the defensive end? How that unit's looking overall?
Yeah, we'll start with Chris. I mean, Chris obviously is a phenomenal player right here from the state of Mississippi. USM means a lot to him. He's one of the first guys that I got a chance to meet with when I first got the job. He's probably one of many guys that had an opportunity to leave, but he stayed for Southern Miss. He stayed because he loves this school. He loves this community. He loves this state. To me, that's important because in a world of where things turn quickly, where money's involved now, where kids wear 4 or 5 different logos in their college career, the purity of still loving your university and loving your community matters. So he represents that. He represents the team that was, the team that wants to be better, the team that wants to change. So he's able to kind of be that conduit between, all the new guys, not just the guys from the other place, but all the new guys that have come into the locker room. And he keeps the core of, okay, this is what Southern Miss stands for. He's done a phenomenal job. Obviously, he missed the last 3 games with injury, but he's back healthy now. He's hitting phenomenal numbers in the weight room. His growth and development from, being a freshman linebacker to where he is now is going to be through the roof. We expect him to have a really good year, and that leads into our defense. We've brought a good bit of guys from the other place defense, so we've got a good core unit. And just watching guys like Chris Jones kind of evolve into our defense. Coach Seymour does a really good job of being a step ahead, but not a step too far. So we've been able to install as the players are able to learn. Chris has done a phenomenal job of kind of expediting his learning because there are some guys who already know, step 1, step 2. So it's been good. It's been good to see. He was talking to us on the car on the way down here, and he was like, it was the best feeling because every day at practice I was uncomfortable. And I was growing, and I felt it. And then that's what this program is about, putting guys in positions to grow. Some guys are going to grow more than others, right? Chris is a younger guy. He's going to grow more than maybe one of our seniors. But making guys uncomfortable enough to grow, and that's been really our focus.
We're going to circle back to that possibly because we're going to end here with some rapid-fire questions. Once again, here with Coach Huff from Southern Miss Football. Just some general questions for you as we wrap up here. Favorite stadium that you've coached in your career, or one or two? You can't limit it to one.
I've been blessed that, I would probably have to say between Bryant Denny at the University of Alabama and Happy Valley at Penn State. Those are two special environments that kind of really represent what college football is truly about, the pageantry of, history and tradition.
Favorite recruit that you were able to sign, and that could be whatever criteria you want to have for that. Player that started, got him really young, and he turned developed into somebody. Maybe just a funny story, anecdote behind it.
Yeah, it sounds very cliche, but I would say Saquon Barkley. And I say that because it was a group of us, myself, Sean Spencer, James Franklin, we recruited Saquon Barkley. He wasn't Saquon Barkley. He was a good high school player that was starting to develop. And the reason I would say he's my favorite because he came in and he embraced everything we asked him to do. And that is, as a coach, like, that's the motivating. When you come to work and you feel like, hey, I've got to be a better coach today because this player wants to get better. That's the gratifying piece. Obviously, he's a phenomenal player now, and I'm not saying that that we all of a sudden put him in a cage and made this great player, but just watching him grow from when nobody knew who he was to who he's become was really interesting.
Is that something you tell your players now? Like, look where he's been, and you saw him at his early infancy as a
Yeah,
prep player.
and you talk about how he embraced the process because that's what made. He was a good player. He didn't have 40 or 50 offers. He was a 2 or 3 star kid, and he wasn't even the top rated running back in the state of Pennsylvania. We signed the top rated running back in the state of Pennsylvania at that time. We signed the 1 and the 2. But the way he embraced the process from day one, he said, I want to be the best. What do I need to do? And everything we asked him to do, he did. So I use that a lot with our players because, people all ask all the time, what does it take to be great? It's really a boring answer. You have to do all the little things every single day. And they're like, I thought it was going to be like some chat GTP answer and like it was going to just hit me. No, you have to do all the little things every single day. And it's a boring process, but that's what it takes to be great.
Is that the best advice? I'll switch ahead. Is that the best coaching advice you think you give overall to players, just about embracing that process?
Yeah, and it's tough because, there's really no guarantee of a result. Players would be so much more involved if in these processes if you said, hey, if you do A, B, C, and D, you're going to get drafted in the first round, you're going to become a millionaire. They would do it. But you could do A, B, C, and D, and maybe it doesn't work out. But what I try to get them to understand is if you embrace the process, it's not the end result, it's the growth on the journey. And you may not get drafted in the first round, but look how much growth you'll have in your overall life if you just embrace this process. So that would be a big piece.
Uh, Best high school player that you've seen in person, one or two.
Probably Bryce Young. Bryce Young would probably be the best, and before then I would say Cam Newton. But I saw Bryce Young put on a show against a really good high school team, 2 really good high school teams, and I said this kid is special. Probably, but Bryce Young's pregame warm up in that game was better than I've seen some guys' games. So yeah, I would say Bryce Young.
Favorite pregame meal or just kind of routine that you developed over time as a coach?
Yeah, I'm really consistent. I'm probably really boring. I'm not sure why my wife, stays with me because I do the same thing over and over and over every single day. Very routine oriented life to eliminate anxiety. It's why I do it. So I would probably say I'm traditional spaghetti and salad. Whatever the typical pasta salad combination of pregame is. I don't know if I need the carbohydrates, but that's what they're supposed to give our players.
We did the. Oh yeah. One thing that you would change or just improve in the college football landscape, just overall. Now that we're a few years into this, ever changing new era of college
And I think there's a lot of really smart people that are working this thing out. When you're 1-11, you ain't got time to be trying to solve world problems. But I do think just getting a little bit more um, control or organization on the transfer portal. The money's the money. I mean, like the money's been money for years. We Southern Miss is not recruiting against Texas. I mean, it's just not that, right? And Texas is always going to be in a battle with Georgia. The money is the money. But I think just a little bit of control on the transfer portal, when guys can move, and that's so it helps their academic performance as well, and it gives them a chance to get to a school and to get acclimated. I think that's really important. I think it takes time to get guys acclimated to a culture. I think it takes time to get guys familiar with a process, and to give them the best chance to be successful, to give them that time. So just a little bit more, control on the timing of the transfer portal. If that's one window, when is that window? That would probably be the biggest thing for me, being boots on the ground.
And then lastly, what's the best coaching advice you've received, just in your, or one or two advices that you've received over time?
Yeah, it's Coach Saban would say all the time, create a plan and work the plan. Don't stray from the plan. Obviously, there's going to be adjustments along the way, but if you create a plan and says we're practicing 4 days a week in the summer and 5 days a week, whatever it is, practice 5 days a week. Don't get halfway through and say, well, we want to go 2 days. Create a plan, think it out and well in advance, and work the plan.
Coach, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. To the top.